The galaxy had long been ruled by the ancient empires, the Viekar Dominion, the Zalari Hierarchy, and the Phyrexian Union. Each had existed for tens of thousands of years, expanding their influence, waging wars, and maintaining a delicate balance of power. To them, technological progress had slowed to a crawl, with most advances being refinements of existing technologies rather than true breakthroughs. They had reached a plateau, believing themselves to be the pinnacle of galactic civilization. When humanity was first discovered, it barely registered as noteworthy, a species confined to a single star system, using outdated fusion drives and rudimentary energy weapons. They were dismissed as primitives. No empire saw them as a threat, or even as a species worth subjugating. They were merely another insignificant race that would either fade into irrelevance or eventually be assimilated into galactic order. The Viekar, an empire of bureaucratic precision and vast fleets, had monitored Earth from a distance, filing reports but taking no action. The Zalari, elegant and advanced, saw no value in engaging with a race still learning to harness the power of the atom. The Phyrexians, warlike and brutal, saw humans as potential slaves but deemed them unworthy of an invasion effort. There was no urgency, no concern. What none of them realized was that while they had stagnated, humanity had been moving at a relentless pace. The discovery of antimatter as an energy source had revolutionized every aspect of human technology. Unlike the alien empires, which relied on fusion or singularity cores with limited efficiency, humans had achieved the impossible: perfect antimatter containment. This singular breakthrough had propelled them past millennia of expected development in a matter of decades. While the rest of the galaxy believed humanity to be weak, the reality was far different. The Sol system had been fortified in absolute secrecy. Artificial intelligence-driven warships, operating without the need for biological crews, had been perfected. Tactical doctrines had been rewritten, designed around speed, precision, and overwhelming force. Humanity had become something new, something that did not rely on numbers, tradition, or outdated doctrines. The first crack in the illusion of human weakness came when a Phyrexian raiding fleet, believing Earth to be defenseless, launched an incursion into the outer edges of the Sol system. The warlord leading the fleet expected a routine conquest, an easy victory over what they assumed to be a race barely capable of spaceflight. They were met with something they did not understand. The human ship that responded to the incursion was unlike anything the Phyrexians had ever seen. It was smaller than their warships, sleek and angular, but it moved in ways that defied physics. It appeared in multiple locations simultaneously, blinking in and out of existence, attacking with weapons that left no debris, only the sudden and absolute disintegration of anything they struck. The battle was not a battle at all. It was an execution. The Phyrexian fleet, numbering in the dozens, was annihilated in under a minute. Their weapons were ineffective, their defenses irrelevant. The lone human warship left nothing behind but silence and a single surviving vessel, allowed to escape so that it could deliver a message. When the Phyrexian High Command received the report, they dismissed it as lies. The warlord must have been incompetent. The humans had likely used some trick, some deception. They refused to believe that a single warship could wipe out an entire fleet. Their response was swift. They would send more ships, a larger force, and crush these upstarts before their arrogance spread. What the Phyrexians did not understand, what no one in the galaxy understood, was that humanity had never intended to fight wars the way other species did. The aliens relied on massive fleets, slow-moving engagements, and drawn-out conflicts where numbers dictated victory. Humans had designed their military doctrine around something else entirely: absolute and immediate supremacy. The Viekar and the Zalari watched from a distance, their curiosity piqued but their arrogance intact. To them, the Phyrexians were brutes, and any failures on their part were to be expected. They did not yet realize that they, too, were living on borrowed time. Humanity had remained silent for too long. The galaxy still believed itself invincible. That belief would soon be shattered beyond repair. The Phyrexian warlords, enraged by their humiliating defeat, assembled a force unlike any they had deployed before. 2,000 warships, armed with the best weapons their empire could muster, were dispatched toward the Sol system. Their goal was simple: overwhelm humanity with sheer numbers, crush any resistance, and established dominance before the other galactic powers took notice. They had no doubt that victory was inevitable. As the fleet approached, they expected to encounter standard defensive measures, patrol ships, orbital defenses, maybe even a planetary shield. Instead, they found nothing. The system was eerily silent. No transmissions, no visible fleets, just a scattering of orbital installations and the distant glow of Earth itself. It was unsettling. Conquering a species that refused to fight back was not what the Phyrexians had prepared for. Then, without warning, space itself fractured. Human warships materialized out of nowhere, appearing in formations that defied any known military doctrine. The Phyrexians barely had time to react before the first shots were fired. The human weapons were unlike anything seen before. No plasma bolts, no railgun projectiles, just pinpoint bursts of antimatter energy that erased ships from existence, as if they had never been there at all. The Phyrexians tried to counterattack, but it was impossible. Their targeting system struggled to lock onto ships that moved faster than any known technology should allow. Their fleet formations, designed for brutal, close-range engagements, collapsed instantly under the relentless precision of human firepower. The battle was over in less than 3 minutes. What had started as an invasion ended as an extinction-level slaughter. The few surviving Phyrexian vessels fled, their commanders too stunned to process what had happened. They had expected resistance. What they encountered was something else entirely, an enemy so far beyond them that the concept of war itself no longer applied. This was not a battle between rival civilizations. It was the effortless dismantling of a species that had dared to challenge something it could not comprehend. The news of the Phyrexian defeat spread faster than light. The VA Car and Zalari, who had previously ignored the conflict, suddenly took notice. They convened emergency councils, analyzing every scrap of data from a battle. What they saw defied all logic. Human warships operated on principles that should have been impossible. Their speed, their firepower, their apparent invincibility, none of it aligned with anything galactic powers understood. The VA Car, cautious and methodical, proposed diplomacy. If humanity had truly achieved technological supremacy, it would be wiser to negotiate than to provoke them. The Zalari, arrogant in their ancient wisdom, refused to believe that an upstart species could surpass their own advancements. And the Phyrexians, humiliated and desperate, demanded war. A coalition was formed. If humanity would not reveal the secrets of its power, then they would be forced to do so. The galactic empires pooled their forces, gathering a war fleet larger than any in recorded history. 50,000 ships, drawn from every major power, were assembled for one purpose: to crush humanity before their dominance became irreversible. They advanced toward the Sol system, certain that their combined strength would succeed where the Phyrexians had failed. Humanity, however, had been waiting for this moment. Every engagement had been calculated. Every move was intentional. The galaxy had been led exactly where humanity wanted them. When the coalition fleet arrived, they found Earth seemingly undefended once again. Confidence surged among the alien commanders. They had been fooled once by human tricks, but now they were prepared. They spread their forces, deploying scout units, scanning for hidden fleets, searching for weaknesses. They found none, and then the trap was sprung. Human ships emerged from hyperspace not in the traditional sense, but with instantaneous precision, appearing at optimal attack angles, as if they had been waiting in every possible position at once. Before the coalition could react, the first wave of antimatter strikes landed. Entire divisions of the fleet ceased to exist in an instant. The coalition scrambled to counterattack, but it was futile. The humans did not engage in prolonged battles. There were no drawn-out exchanges of fire, no strategic retreats. Each human attack was a decisive, calculated kill. The coalition forces, vast as they were, might as well have been standing still. Panic spread among the alien ranks. Admirals and commanders, beings who had never known defeat, now found themselves powerless against an enemy that operated beyond their understanding. Communications devolved into chaos as ships were wiped from existence before they could even process what was happening. The most powerful fleet in galactic history was being reduced to debris in mere minutes. The surviving forces attempted to flee, but humanity allowed only a select few to escape. They needed witnesses. They needed survivors who would return to their homeworlds and speak of what they had seen. This was no longer a war. It was a demonstration. The coalition fleet was shattered, its remnants limping back to their empires with a singular message. Humanity was not a threat to be contained. They were not an enemy to be fought. They were something else entirely. Something unstoppable. The rulers of the galaxy, once so confident in their supremacy, now face an undeniable truth. The balance of power had shifted. The age of their dominance was over, and the era of humanity had begun. The silence that followed the destruction of the coalition fleet was more profound than any declaration of war. Across the galaxy, empires that had once dictated the course of history found themselves frozen in fear. Their greatest military minds struggled to comprehend the scale of their failure. 50,000 ships, the pride of a dozen civilizations, had ceased to exist in mere minutes. Reports from a few survivors were fragmented, filled with incoherent descriptions of impossible weapons, ships that moved faster than thought, and a force that had rewritten the very nature of warfare. For the first time in untold millennia, the great empires were truly afraid. The VA car withdrew into their fortified core worlds, activating ancient defense systems that had remained idle for centuries. The Zalari shut down all external communications, their ruling councils dissolving into endless debates about how to respond to an enemy that had rendered their entire military doctrine obsolete. The Phyrexians, once proud conquerors, descended into chaos as their leadership fractured under the weight of absolute defeat. No demands had been issued. No threats had been made. Humanity had not responded to hails or diplomatic envoys. They had done nothing to claim territory or impose authority. That was what terrified the galactic powers the most. War was something they understood. Conquest, power struggles, political maneuvering, these were the constants of history. But humanity did not act like conquerors. They did not expand. They did not claim dominion. They did not follow the patterns of those who sought power. Instead, humanity vanished. No warships patrolled the borders. No fleets moved beyond Sol. Human space was a void, silent and untouchable. Scouting probes sent to gather information simply ceased to exist upon entering human territory. Even long-range scans provided nothing. It was as if the entire system had been erased from the galaxy itself. This absence, this deliberate withdrawal, was more unsettling than any direct conflict. The empires whispered among themselves, speculating on human intentions. Were they waiting, planning something greater? Had the destruction of the coalition fleet been merely a warning, or had it been an execution? Desperation took hold. The VA car sent emissaries, their finest diplomats offering anything humanity might desire: resources, technology, entire planets if necessary. The messages were sent into the void, never to be answered. The Zalari, arrogant even in fear, attempted their own approach, launching a covert infiltration mission to uncover the truth behind humanity's power. The agents simply disappeared. No distress signals, no final transmissions. Just silence. The Phyrexians, broken and humiliated, took the most desperate action of all. Their remaining warlords gathered their forces and sent what was left of their fleets on a final, suicidal offensive. It was not an attempt at victory. It was an act of madness. They would rather die in battle than live under the shadow of an enemy they could not understand. The fleets never reached Sol. They did not even get close. The moment they crossed the boundary of human space, their ships simply ceased to function. Power flickered and died. Weapon systems failed. Engines sputtered out, leaving them adrift. Then, one by one, the ships vanished. There was no battle, no engagement. The fleet was erased from existence, as if it had never been. The final transmission from the Phyrexian armada was a single, chilling message. They are watching. Panic spread like wildfire. The rulers of the galaxy, once untouchable in their grandeur, were now prisoners of their own fear. No one dared to act. No one dared to provoke. Every empire turned inward, reinforcing their defenses, abandoning expansion, retreating into paranoia. The balance of power had been broken, not through conquest, but through the sheer certainty that nothing could stand against the unseen force that humanity had become. For centuries, the galaxy had believed itself the pinnacle of civilization. But now, in the silence left behind by humanity's departure, a new truth had taken hold. The rulers of the stars were no longer those who wielded the greatest fleets or controlled the most territory. The new masters of the galaxy were the ones who had no need to prove their power, and humanity, unseen and unknowable, had become something more than a civilization. They had become the myth, the warning, the gods and the void. Centuries passed, but the fear never faded. The galaxy remained frozen, empires paralyzed in their own uncertainty. Expansion halted. Wars ceased. Old rivalries, once fought with endless fleets and planetary invasions, dissolved under the weight of the singular, undeniable truth. Humanity was out there unseen, silent, and watching. No one knew if they would return. No one knew if they would strike again. And so, the great civilizations of the stars lived in quiet terror, whispering among themselves about the ghosts of soul. The VA car, once meticulous and unshakable, had turned their empire into a fortress. Every system was heavily shielded, their fleets kept close to their core worlds, their people living under strict control. Even the mention of humanity was forbidden in their highest councils, as if acknowledging them would invite their attention. The Zalari, who once considered themselves the galaxy's cultural and intellectual elites, had sealed themselves away completely. They abandoned diplomacy, shuttered their embassies, and erased every record of their past dealings with Earth. Their greatest scholars spent lifetimes trying to decipher the nature of human technology, but without a single artifact to study. Their efforts were fruitless. The Threxians had fallen the farthest. Their civilization had collapsed under the weight of its own paranoia. Their warlords turned on each other, each believing that humanity might strike them down at any moment. Their fleets, once feared across the stars, lay in ruins, self-destructed in desperate act of surrender to an enemy that never returned. Their homeworld, once a fortress of steel and blood, was now a graveyard. And through it all, the silence persisted. Then something changed. A deep space probe, long abandoned, drifted too close to the edge of soul space. It was old, damaged, its transmission weak and garbled, but what it captured sent shockwaves through the galaxy. A signal, brief, unmistakable. Not a message, not a warning. A pulse. A single, deliberate pulse of energy, sent from deep within human space. It was not a weapon. It did not destroy. But it was seen. It was heard. It was understood. Humanity still existed. The response was immediate and absolute. Every empire went into lockdown. Fleets pulled back. Entire sectors were abandoned. Colonies were evacuated without explanation. No one wanted to be the first to act. No one wanted to draw attention. Every species, every ruler, every soldier who had ever heard the stories knew the truth. Humanity had never been defeated. They had never left. They had simply been waiting. The theories spread like wildfire. Some believed it was a test, a way to see how the galaxy would react. Others feared it was a warning, a reminder that they had not been forgotten. The most desperate clung to hope, believing that humanity might return as allies rather than executioners. But no one dared to seek them out. Not a single ship entered Sol. Not a single message was sent. The silence resumed, heavier than ever before. And in that silence, the galaxy changed once more. The empires, once proud and unyielding, became shadows of what they had been. They ruled not with strength, but with caution. They built not for war, but for survival. Expansion was no longer driven by ambition, but by fear. Fear of overstepping, fear of drawing attention, fear of awakening the force that had so effortlessly rewritten the laws of power. The legends grew. They were told in hushed tones in the halls of rulers, in the barracks of soldiers, in the dark corners of dying worlds. The myths of Earth, the whispers of soul, the ghosts that had once been men. No one knew what humanity wanted. No one knew if they would ever return. But one truth remained, undeniable and eternal. The galaxy no longer belonged to the ancient empires. It belonged to the unseen gods in the void.